what is the Agnipath scheme? It is by Rajat. Is it a good or a bad initiative by the government? Why are so many people protesting? Yes, good question. It's become a big, controversy for whatever reason. So let me share the screen and see and kind of show what's going on. So people are saying it's a bad scheme. Various retired personnel, etc., army generals, and so on. So let me give you just one example of that. Uh, so this is one example. There are lots of retired army personnel who are saying similar things. So this is by Lieutenant General Vinod Bhatia, retired. And this gentleman says, death knell for the armed forces. TOD, not tour of duty, not tested. No pilot project, straight implementation. Will also lead to the militarization of society. Nearly 75% youth year on year back rejected and dejected without a job. Semi-trained in arms, especially example Agniveers. Not a good idea. Nobody gains. No one gains. So there is one example, and there are lots of other examples. Lots of media people, lots of retired army people, and so on are criticizing this. I read an article said that this is like a kindergarten scheme for the army. It's going to ruin the army. Blah 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 blah, and on and on. So the impression that they are trying to create is that this is terrible for the armed forces. It's going to be the death knell for the armed forces. This is the end, destroyed. The army is going to be destroyed, and so on. How much of this is true? They were saying similar things about the farm laws, and I supported the farm laws, and I got hundreds of comments saying that Abhijit, you're wrong. Abhijit, you're mistaken. You're stupid. Blah blah blah. Fine, okay. You disagree, and it's fine. It's fine with me. I don't take it personally. Now, so what are the characteristics of the tour of duty, the Agnipath scheme? It is between the ages of 17 and half, I think, and 22 or 23 or something. This year, it's going to be extended up to a couple of years of age, maybe up to 24 or something like that, whatever it is. So this year is an exceptional year. They're going to extend it by 2 years, the upper age. But going forward is going to be between 17 and a half years and 22. So if you are within that age range, you are eligible for this. Now it's a 4-year tour of duty. So you're not getting a permanent job. You're getting a 4-year commission. In those 4 years, you will become a proper soldier. You'll be trained. The training is about 6 months. Then you go on a tour of duty. You serve in the armed forces. You get a salary of, 30,000-40,000 a month, something like that. Yeah. And then after the end of 4 years, 1/4 of the people who came into your batch will be retained. The rest will be released back into the civilian population. What you will get if you're released is you will get about 12 lakh rupees. That's what the government will give you, a lump sum kind of thing, right? It's a 12 lakh rupee corpus, 11 point something, nearly 12 lakh rupees. And since you have served in the armed forces for 4 years, and since there's almost no expenditure, the salary that you acquired will also be saved. So that's roughly give or take 10 lakh rupees. So once you're out, let's say you went in at the age of at the age of 18, and you're out at the age of 22. At the age of 22, you will get a lump sum 22 lakh rupee corpus of money. 22 lakh rupees. At the age of 22, you have 22 lakh rupees in your bank account. How many 22-year-olds know what 22 lakh rupees looks like? I didn't know what 22 lakh rupees looked like at the age of 22. I didn't know what 10 lakh rupees looked like at the age of 22. So you are getting a start in life with 22 lakh rupees. Can you imagine that? Is that a bad thing? And see, it's like this. Not everybody is cut out for the armed forces. So 1/4 will be retained, those who have performed really well and those who have shown the inclination to stay in for the long game. The others, they will get all the skills, all the training, the leadership training, the fitness training, various other mechanical and technological training that you need in the armed forces to be effective. And then you're out into the job market at the age of 22, when everybody else graduates and so on. You already got some training which will add to the credit, which will be like half a graduation. So whatever training you got in these 4 years will be recognized as credits towards a degree. So it will be like half your degree is done right there in case you want to go for a degree. But most people, I would say, would take this 22 lakh rupees and start a business or start something. Or some people would want to go into the CRPF or whatever it is, right? Something like that. So there are so many options open at the age of 22 once you're out of it. Now, and one of the objections that people are raising is that in 6 months you cannot train a soldier. In 4 years you will not be trained sufficiently. It is going to reduce the army to a kindergarten. 4 years. That's what they're saying. I think everybody on this channel and most people in India have the highest regard for the IDF, Israeli Defense Force. Yes. Do you know that in Israel there is compulsory conscription? It's a 3 year tour of duty. In 3 years, they train their personnel, their soldiers fully. After this 3 year term, they're back into the civilian population. You think the Israeli armed forces are not sufficiently well trained? Is that the impression that you get? No. They are one of the best and most professional armed forces in the world. And their training period, their entire tour period is 3 years. We are doing it for 4 years. You think we can't achieve the same level or better level of proficiency and competence and professionalism in a 4 year term tour of duty? What nonsense is this sort of argument? Stupid argument. In Israel, you have 3 years. Similar cases are there in the US, in South Korea. They also have similar things. Also, Russia, Germany, Taiwan, the UK. All of these countries have similar schemes. They all have extremely well trained armed forces. So this argument falls flat on its face, and these people who are making the arguments that this is not tested, this is a death knell for armed forces, they seem to have some ulterior motives. All right, I am not pointing fingers at any specific individual. I'm not even pointing fingers at the person whose tweet I showed. I'm just saying in general, there seems to be something going on. They are trying to misrepresent what is happening right now. The average age of the average Indian armed forces soldier or officer or whatever, the average age of any random person is about 32 to 33 years. It's rather old. So by implementing the scheme, we're going to have a younger, fitter, and more modern and more dynamic corpus of soldiers, right? In the armed forces. It's good. We need fresh intake. We need young blood in the armed forces, younger people, stronger and fitter people, right? And a more modern outlook that comes in from the young people. Teenagers and youngsters are very future oriented. They are very modern. Their orientation and attitude is very modern, much more than people who are older. So it's a good thing. And not everybody wants a job for life. Today, the teenagers, the youngsters, they want to explore different things, but they also want to contribute something to their country and to the defense of their country. This is a scheme that is perfect for that, you know. And some people say that it's going to destroy the culture of the armed forces. What stupid claim is that? The culture and the traditions of the armed forces are passed on via the officers. And this Agnipath scheme is not for the intake of officers. It is for the intake of personnel who come below the officer level. So it's not going to change anything about the culture of the armed forces. If the officers can do their job, then the culture is there. So please understand, I am not in any way criticizing the way the armed forces are, but they need reforms. India has one of the best and most professional armies and militaries in the world. We are proud of everything they have achieved. We are proud of everything they're still doing today. They are putting their lives on the line every single day and night while we are sitting comfortably wherever we are. So we are proud of the armed forces, but it does need reforms. The Indian army, the Indian military is still run the way it was run in the 1960s and 50s, 1940s. Many of these traditions and all that, the culture, it comes back from the British Raj days. That needs to slowly go. We need professionalism. We need what's called lateral intake. We need people who can come and go for a certain duration and then go back. I mean, look at countries where you have such schemes. The people who have come out of the armed forces have contributed so much to society. Many US presidents were they served in the Marines or the Air Force or Navy or whatever, right? John F. Kennedy is an example. George Bush's father, the first Bush, George Bush Jr. Senior, he served in Second World War. He was shot down by the Japanese. You know, and some people say it's going to lead to the militarization of society. I think India's society needs a little bit of militarization and that military attitude. I think that would really help Indian society, because right now Indian society, it's kind of indisciplined. It needs some of that. And The Indian government has said very clearly that we are not going to take back this scheme. Good job, don't take it back. And once this scheme is implemented, yes, some things will need to be changed, some tweaks will have to be made. That's what happens with any scheme anywhere in the world. So after 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, they're going to refine the scheme, make some changes, and it's going to become even better. And in about a decade's time, what's going to happen is that we will have more than 1 million trained reserves who have been released back into the civilian population. And these trained reserves are very well, they can come in very handy in times of need. If there is a war, well, we, you know what kind of neighborhood we are sitting in India. We have a bad neighborhood, we have very bad neighbors. In case there is a war and we need to pull up some reserves, you will have a ready made population of well trained reserves who can come back, and they know how to handle weapons, they know how the army works, they know how these things work, and they'll be able to fit back on demand into the armed forces. Well trained, motivated, patriotic people who have gone through 4 years of training and service. I mean, it is an excellent thing. Now, some people will not agree with it. It's fine. Today, what is the date today? Today is the 19th of June 2022. Take out your diaries, write it down that Abhijit Chavda said this on 19th of June 2022, that this is an excellent scheme. Then come back in 10 years' time, open the diary, and ask yourselves, was I right or was I wrong? I was right about the farm laws. The government had to take it back. Fine. This scheme is even better. This is an excellent scheme for the military, for the nation. People will create the sort of narrative that it's a bad thing. Come back in 10 years' time and then see. Do a little bit of growing up. Right now, you may be doubtful because your favorite influencer, or news reader, or YouTuber or whatever must have told you that this is a bad scheme. Come back in 10 years after you do a bit of growing up, and then and then see. Then ask yourself, was this a good scheme or a bad scheme? Was I right or wrong? I guarantee you, likh ke rakh lo, I am right. It's an excellent scheme for India. So that is what I have to say about this. And I know lots of people on both sides. These days there are two wings in India, left wing and right wing. And left wing is totally against the scheme, we know that. But plenty of various influential people on the so-called right wing are also disparaging this plan, this scheme. I'm not naming anybody, but we know that some people are doing that. Many people are doing that. Well, they're all wrong. And I wonder why they're doing this. Some people are very much anti anything that this government does. And I find it very strange and perplexing. And I wonder what the motivation is. So I am very clear about this. This is an excellent scheme, the Agnipath scheme, and we should all support it. It's going to be very beneficial for the country, for the military in the long run. The game is always in the long run, not the short term. All right. So I support it 100%, and so should you.